Hello, I'm Steve Watson here at Someday Farm, and I was just thinking about sharing a bit of story about some of my earlier days practicing Tai Chi Chuan and how I studied. The point of this is not to say I studied the right way or best way, or the right or best way for you. Don't even know if it's the right or best way for me, but it is my story. My teacher, who's up there on the wall, actually, Um, he would teach at the time I'm talking about. This changed too, but he would teach an introduction to Tai Chi Chuan seminar, um, and that would be followed by a introductory series. I forget what he called it at the moment, but pay your money, which I think was $75, for 12 weeks of study, hour-long classes. And so people would come in for 12 weeks and they'd learn some Tai Chi Chuan. And then he had a second 12-week course to deepen your understanding and so on and so forth. But just to simplify, people would get an introduction, a free introduction, Q&A, demonstration, his spiel about it and so forth. And then people would come in for 12 weeks to study. And so what I would do regularly is I'd come into week one and study with that group, which is not my normal group, but it was a group of study that was happening. And then week two, I'd come into week two, let's say it's Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And then Thursday or whatever, the next week would be week three, Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Is just an estimation, but let's say in week four, it's Tuesday at 6 o'clock is the fourth week for this group in their 12-week course of study. But also in the fourth week, he would be doing an intro to Tai Chi Chuan, the first of 12 weeks, Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. And so in week four, I would do week four, but also week one of this other week. And then in week five, I would go to the Tuesday at 6 o'clock week five class. And I would also go to the week two, whatever I said, Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. class. And then when we got to week six, then I would be doing week three and week six at the same time. And then I would be doing week seven and week four. And then I would be doing week eight and week whatever I'm on, five, and week one on some other group that would be Saturday at 10 a.m. or whatever. So from my point of view, I would have a great deal of study that was available to me in a given week. But from the point of view of an individual person, one of those classes, they just have week one followed by week two, followed by week three, followed by week four until they complete the course. And I would essentially just sign up for any introductory session that I could. And I did this, 100 times or whatever, I don't know, many dozens of times, whatever it was, over and over and over and over. And I'd try and stay in the back so as not to, if I knew a move, certainly I knew it better than the beginners. I would try not to encourage them to feel undexterous or uncoordinated or ungraceful or unbalanced if they were to compare themselves to me. So I'd try and stay in the back and not ask too many questions, but I'd be watching. I'd be watching both what was taught and how it was taught, and I would be watching how it was learned, and how the students responded, because from my general perch in the back. Now, by the time I'm on my 49th class one, I can pretty much say everything my teacher's going to say, and I know the order of things, and I can actually do it somewhat well. So there's very little surprises in that class. But my experience was that there is no individual class in which I didn't learn something. I certainly had the experience, whether it's true or not, but this sort of subjective experience of thinking, during this given class, and this is the 72nd time I've done class 2, 98% of it, like I've done before. I know this. I can do it in my sleep. I know this. But there would be something every time where, okay, that's new. I hadn't noticed that before. Now, was it new, or was I just now able to see it because I had seen all the other stuff? Because I had integrated some other things, and now this, perhaps more subtle thing, is more apparent to me now. I don't know. Didn't matter. What mattered is that I learned something every time. Obviously, when we got to week 12, more often, week 12 would be newer to me for longer, right? Because I just, by definition, you've had less experience with that. But over time, I just amassed many, many, many dozens, hundreds perhaps, of iterations of how my teacher teaches the form. This is not me trying to say that he taught it as best as it could be taught, or certainly not saying that I teach it exactly that way, but certainly when I began to teach, that was the model I followed. And that was like, this is the way I understand how to do it, and I'll find my way into being my own kind of teacher in a more organic fashion. So there's a lot of lessons to be drawn from this, such as the value of the beginner's class, the value of the Mushin, the value of the white belt mentality, the value of returning to the beginning or the basics, the value of observing teaching, the value of observing learning. But I just thought I'd share a bit for the record here. This is my experience in learning. Meanwhile, I had my regular classes and my, I don't know, intermediate classes or whatever they were at the time, or private lessons or whatever. I had all those, but I saw an opportunity to study, and my teacher didn't seem to mind. I don't think he ever really invited me to it. He certainly didn't expect it initially, but it became, understood that's what I was going to do. And I guess it was also a way to support the school, because I'm paying for more classes than anybody would guess I need, because that's a beginner class. You don't need that. You've done that. But I found that exceedingly important. So maybe it's something for you to consider, right? Have you returned to the beginner's class? Not because you were needed to teach or assistant teach or something, but because you can return to the beginner's class as a beginner.